Hey, brand builders, ready to take your brand to the next level? I'm Dana Ammons, and welcome to the Brand Blueprint. Welcome back to the Brand Blueprint. I'm your host, Dana Ammons, and today we're spotlighting a founder that I have really had a lot of fun mentoring, Nazr El-Scari, who is founder and CEO of Solecit, which is a high-growth tech platform in the fashion space that we're going to spend a lot of time talking about today. However, Nazr also recently completed the CIC program in which we were both introduced as part of the Impact Accelerator program that just wrapped up earlier this month. And so we want to talk a little bit about his time there in Boston and his time now heading forward as he returns to his hometown of Kansas City to bring all of those learnings and great experiences and insights he gained through the CIC in his time in Boston. So Nazr, it is great to have you on the call finally, brother. Welcome to the Brand Blueprint.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be a part of this and share my story and hopefully inspire some people. So yeah, I'm thankful to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, I know you definitely are going to inspire some people, young folks and old folks alike. I fall somewhere in between, I think. But that being said, let's jump into the first segment. Before we get into the questions and the nitty and gritty of Solecit and the grind and hustle of Boston, let's talk a little bit and get to learn a little bit more about you. So are you ready to jump into our rapid fire segment?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right, great. Now, as always, I start with one of these key questions that I myself always am curious about, especially when it comes to younger founders like yourself. So first, I'll ask you, coffee or tea?
Uncaffeinated tea. I'm a big tea guy for sure.
Very cool. Okay, so let's go one step further. Favorite tea flavor?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think I lean more towards mint. More time.
A mint guy. Okay. That is very interesting. Bit of a surprise. I didn't see that one coming. Okay. So following that one up, morning person or night owl?
Oof. Throughout most of my childhood, I was a morning person. Throughout college, I quickly became a more night person. And I think now transitioning kind of out of that mode, I'm moving more back into being a morning person again. I think there's something really valuable about getting up early, kind of seeing the sunrise and kind of, bringing your energy into the day a little bit more calmly than kind of waking up and got to get right to it. So I would say morning.
Okay. I love that. Now, shifting into a little bit more of your area of expertise. Okay. Favorite item in your wardrobe?
Oof. If you want to get real specific, favorite item in my wardrobe is always going to be my Win Like 96 Jordan 11s. All red Jordan 11s. As somebody from Kansas City, it really makes me feel like Dorothy, get my, click my heels 3 times and then I'm home. So that's why they're my favorite for sure.
I love it. Shout out to Kansas City. Shout out for sure to Jordan fans. I'm sure there is always a debate on which colorway in the Jordan 11 selects was the best one, but that one definitely, I believe, is a worthy contender. Now, building a little bit on that, and our audience is going to understand a little bit more as we get into the interview why these fashion-related questions make sense. But I want to talk a little bit about the tech side of things. And tell me, as you have worked through and continue to work through the building out of this platform, especially as a guy who didn't come from the technical side, what is the favorite tool right now of yours that you're using to build your platform?
Ooh, now that is a really good question. I would say my favorite tool is I'll give you a basic and an advanced. A basic answer I would say is the Google Suite. I think there's nothing you can't do when you have the Google Suite because, of course, you have your Gmail, you got all your docs and sheets and stuff like that. And just the collaborative nature of it, I find really helpful for everything that I do, especially being a non-technical founder, as you said. And then kind of that other aspect of that, kind of bridging the gap between where I sometimes feel ill-equipped in the technical side. I'm really diving into AI a lot more. It's the future of work and in general. And I think that the more that we are not ingraining ourselves with this technology right now, the worse off it'll kind of be in the end because we're not familiar with it. It'll be a harder chasm to cross after it starts to explode. So getting familiar with it now, watching it grow. I also like to tell people I was in a household that was one of the first adopters of iPhones. So I've just been very, passionate about kind of getting in those early versions and giving the companies your feedback, because if you don't speak up, they won't have you in mind, right? And so that's what I would say are my favorite kind of tools right now.
No, I love that. Let's follow that question up because you already tapped into AI. I'm curious, as you start your journey, I am similar to you, exploring all facets of AI and what it can do, both in my business life and in my professional life and personal life. But I would ask you, as a young founder, give me one example of a use of AI you recently discovered that you were like, oh, wow, I didn't know.
Deep research. And I know a lot of people will probably hear this more as these platforms start to grow. But I like to think of it as, there were times when I was in college where I just wanted to go to the engineering school and ask a professor a question just because I was curious. And I never had any background in any of this. And I love to hear experts geek out about the things that they love to increase my own knowledge base. And sometimes people can, feel a little standoffish when you do that, because it's like, why do you want to know? Like, you're not even in this field. But for me, it's like just the genuine curiosity of new things I really enjoy. And so being able to really lean on AI to kind of ask those stupid questions that we sometimes feel like we can't just go and ask other people. Or sometimes when you look at platforms like a Reddit and you go and you ask a question and most of it is people just trolling you for asking it. I think that's where, AI is kind of a safe space to really let your curiosity flourish and decide what areas you're actually interested in all of life. So I find that being the biggest thing that I lean on it for.
Yeah, I love that. I love that answer. Now, before we get out of rapid fire, I want you to kind of emote and step into your CEO role of this high-tech fashion platform, Solecit. And I want you, because of what Solecit is focused on solving for your target consumer, what's one quick style tip that you could provide to our listeners that you have either already gained as a function of all of the data that your team and you have scoured through to understand and better understand styles, or even if it just simply is from your, as a style maverick yourself, as your particular point of view in terms of a one, just essential tip to just help people out that are trying to find their style?
I think that's a great question. I don't want to give them all the sauce because that's what my platform is about,
Exactly.
But, I think the biggest thing that even as I was growing up that I really underutilized are accessories. You can add so much to an outfit that you've worn 130 times by adding this accessory to it. Adding a little pop of color with a bag, or adding a little pop of color with some jewelry. Like the category of accessories is just so wide, and there's so many different things that can match a vibe, a situation, that also add to an outfit, that I think that category goes underutilized more than probably anything else. More people feel like, oh, I need this shirt, or oh, I need this pant. Really, you just need to pop a little something different. Just to kind of guide the eyes in a different place. And so that's where I think accessories are the biggest kind of style hack, I would say.
Hey, you preach it to the choir right here. I love that, young man. I love to hear young brothers that are still into the accessory side of dressing, because I frankly don't see it in many of your peers sometimes, which I'm cool with simplicity. The Drakes and K Dot styles of the world with just a pair of jeans and a squared out T-shirt or whatever. I'm good with that. But every now and then I want to see a young cat dress up and put a little bit more effort into it. And you're right. Those details, especially from us OGs, we definitely believe in the scarf, right? Like the tie pin, the tie clip, things that I'm naming right now that may not be in your wardrobe, but hopefully as you sign up and follow and become a subscriber of Solecit, you might actually get as part of your style recommendation, which we'll tell you a little bit about later. So let's get ready to jump into the main interview. Are you ready to get started?
Yes, sir. I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, let's get ready to get started. Okay, listen, audience, I have been so excited to bring this young man on the show because when we first met several months ago, I was really impressed with the energy that he came with, his enthusiasm for his particular brand and idea, and ultimately just the energy and the creativity he brings into a space that I think is really struggling to find some new creativity, and that's the fashion space. But before we talk about what he's currently doing and what Solecit is doing and about to do to change the fashion game, let's back up a little bit because I want to talk a little bit about our shared Midwest roots. You are a Kansas City kid, born and raised. And you have just recently returned to Kansas City after being away for a while. But let's talk a little bit about growing up in Kansas City. What influence shaped your passion for fashion tech, shaped your perspective and view on fashion, period, and also helped give you the confidence to feel like you could start a business at a young age and get out there and start making money? Tell us a little bit about that, Nazir, how he came to be.
Yeah, really great questions. I think anybody who knows me from my childhood would probably say that young Nazir was always trying to make some money. I am an entrepreneur at heart. I remember first hearing the word somewhere between the ages of 5 and 8. And I actually think I came across it because of Jay-Z. So I come from an artistic family. My mom was a poet. My dad fake raps, so we listen to a lot of old
shout out to Pops. I don't know what a fake raps is. A shout out to Pops. Shout out to Mom's most respect due for her incredible poetry in the city of Kansas City, which is frankly not known as a destination for poetry. So being able to mark, that path in a city like Kansas City is a phenomenal thing. I can't wait to beat both of your parents. But I'm defending your dad on this one. There's no such thing as fake rap, young G. I don't know if that stuff y'all doing is fake rap, but I'm defending your dad. No such thing as fake rap.
No, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. He probably say it too. So in my defense, I'm only speaking in his words. But so just coming from that type of family, arts and artistic expression has always been an important piece to my family.
Nice.
And I went through a lot of art camps as a kid, but never really fully connected with art as a skill that I felt like I really honed and had, like drawing or anything like that. Of course, I think I'm good with words, and I think I'm a really well-read and good speaker and all of that type of stuff, but still wasn't like really my thing, you know what I mean? And so, growing up in Kansas City, having that artistic expression as like the forefront of, just kind of the teachings that I grew up in, I always wanted to figure out a way of just embodying who I am in whatever it is that I do. And I think that that's really what drew me to entrepreneurship at a really young age, because again, like I said, I was always wanting to make money, but there were so many different ways to make money. Like, how do you do that? Of course, as a kid,
you wanted to figure out a way to blend that creative side of yourself, right, with that ability to make money. Just working at McDonald's or Pizza Hut or any of those places wasn't enough. And I think one of the things I want to go back to quickly, because I want our audience, especially our younger audience, who frankly may be in this place in their life right now. You said something that resonates with me because I shared that experience in that when I was younger, growing up in the Midwest, a little farther up the road from you in Omaha, shout out to O, we, had multiple artistic outlets, right? I remember being at AXO and all of these other programs where they were encouraging young brothers and sisters to, express themselves artistically, whether to your point, painting, sketching. There was a really dope graffiti artist from around my way by the name of Houston, who actually became a UFC fighter. Another story, another interview. But my point is, I saw a lot of diversity in those rooms in terms of the type of kids that were pursuing the art. But what I didn't see, and I wish I would have known back then, is that similar to you, I realized at some point my primary hustle at the time was pen and ink and charcoal. I wasn't nice enough to compete after like the first year or two at AXO. Like I literally was like, okay, I'm humble enough to recognize I don't have the skill set that's going to take me to the level that I would need to do, back to your point, to make some money.
Exactly.
And so as I started to recede from that artistic space, it was only because I didn't quite see how my passion for the creative side of my brain could translate into, back to your point, to making money on a daily basis.
Exactly.
So I would say to young folks listening to this now, and parents who are also consulting and counseling, and many times incorrectly guiding their kids away from an artistic career, is that there is a concept of being a creative. And if somebody would have told me or explained to me that, oh, you can be a creative, which broadly means you don't have to necessarily express your creativity through your hands or through drawing. It could be through your mind or through your words or writing scripts, right? Or working on advertising campaigns or envisioning and helping, right, solve really, really tough problems through a creative set of perspectives. So I just want people to understand that just because you didn't succeed at being a cartoon illustrator, or it didn't work out for you in the manga space, or you didn't really have it when it came to watercolor, there are other ways and places within the artistic and the creative community for you to foster that skill set and perspective. And I think, again, Nazir, you were about to lead into kind of how you kind of tugged the, back and forth. Okay, I wanted to do this, but now I really want to make money. So what did that lead to?
Yeah, so it led to, so there was two parts to it as well. I think the other side of it was that most of my life I went to a school that required a uniform. And again, as somebody who grew up in a household that was all about artistic expression, a uniform is incredibly limiting. It's incredibly limiting. And so by nature of that, I fell in love with shoes. That was the one thing that I fell in love with. I also had an older brother I grew up with. Him and his friends were really into footwear. I looked up to him because he was also one of the best hoopers I knew my entire life. And one of my life's goals was to beat him at basketball. And so, like just kind of following him around and going to the mall as a kid. And he was the only person I could walk away with. So we would end up in every shoe store in the mall and spend all the time in there just looking at every shoe, trying a few on, knowing we're not going to buy nothing, but still wanted to, just, all right, let's put our.
Well, we did back then. Yep.
Exactly. And so that's where like that passion for fashion kind of came along as well, because we spent a lot of time in the mall as a kid. But I also went to uniform school. So I was like, I want to find new ways of expressing myself while at this school, while being the smart kid, but also knowing I had this artistic side to me that I didn't really feel comfortable expressing through the arts. And so how do I do that? Fashion is what I really leaned on there. And so as I got more involved with just like figuring out what sneakers are, wearing them, playing sports as a reason to get my parents to buy me more sneakers, I was like, yeah, this is my thing. I can collect these. I love these. And it was around the age I was about 13. My older brother, he's about 7 years older than me. So his friends really started getting into sneaker reselling. And that was the first time that I had ever kind of come across that, because I was always used to just getting my shoes at the mall and that being it. But I never forget, my brother had this one friend, Zach, and he would go to every hoop session and he would have a new pair of shoes that I had never seen in the mall. Mind you, I went to the mall probably at least once or twice a week. So I'm in there for all the new releases. I know the stuff that's being released in my city, but he would always have something that I had never seen in the mall. And I'm like, dude, where are you getting these? And he's like, oh yeah, I got these in Chicago. I'm like, Chicago? I'm like, wait, why are they dropping these in Chicago? Like, how did you even get them? And he's like, yeah, I do this thing called reselling. So I just got people everywhere. And we just, we switch and exchange stuff based on what releases in what city. And I was like, what? And I was like, so wait, you mean, how much do those even cost? He was like, well, at retail, they're like 150. This was when the shoes were a little bit cheaper than they are now. So he was like, they're like 120, 130. But he was like, but they resell for like $400. I said, you got some $400 shoes on and we're hooping? What are we doing? Please let me know how to get involved in this. And that was one of those first moments that I was really involved with what ended up being the catalyst of the first version of Solecit, which is a sneakerhead's paradise. So that's kind of how I got into that, just kind of find sneakers to be my love, and then realize, my older brother, who's always been my connection to a lot of different older cultural things, he put me onto this whole market that I didn't even know existed. And as I got into it, so many people didn't know it existed. We were siloed in the Midwest from a lot of
Yep.
releases because these bigger companies
Yep.
didn't feel like, hey, the Midwest is not fashion forward like, the East Coast or the West Coast. So we're not going to make any money by selling these there. So don't even send them there. And we were like, man, there's a whole lot of money to be made. Everybody here is looking for.
Because there's a whole bunch of fashionable people in the Midwest, right? Like it is definitely a misperception that continues to this day. So first, shout out to Big Bro and the Zach, right? Like part of the origin story definitely inspired you in a way that I think is tangibly how many young people may sometimes miss the opportunity, which is you recognize, hey, I now feel like I've got a bit of perspective and a bit of know what I'm doing in the fashion space, because I've got this creative and artistic side of me that yearns to splash some more color into my wardrobe, wants to mix these shoes and these colorways up in a way that people at school are like, oh, snap, I didn't think you were going to put them together like that, right? Like we both shared that passion. That's kind of similar way that I transitioned out of my artistic side at the same time, being that nerdy kid that everybody expected to frankly also present nerd, right? And so there was always this internal fight with any of us who were in the gifted and talented segment of our schools and our communities, that we had to fight this perception that a nerd had to quote unquote look like some sort of nerd, which I'm not even sure at the end of the day what a black nerd, so to speak, was supposed to look like, right? I just know a black nerd wasn't supposed to have swagger. That was the implicit understanding, right? Like the black nerd, not supposed to have swagger. So I wasn't having it, right? Like my attitude was like, I'm more swaggery than anybody in the neighborhood, like anybody in the city, black, white, or otherwise, didn't matter to me. And so with whatever I had available to me, which was mostly Goodwill, pay less, every now and then a trip to Target or something like that, hand-me-downs from either older cousin or older sibling. And so ultimately, that's what informed my ability to, I think, drive style. But I think you point out something, and I'm much older than you, but I think the shift in the focus started probably right around the time that Jordan and other players started to get their signature shoes, because that one shoe then, to your point, gave kids a way to define themselves in a stylistic way. If that was the only thing you had on that looked worth, anything, because you could have back in the day, 75, 85, 90 pair, a $90 pair of Jordans. And yes, they were under $100 at one point in the whole play of things, but you could be wearing $100 pair of tennis shoes and everything else on you total $5, right? The jeans, the t-shirt, et cetera, because you were from the hood, you saved your money up to get to those shoes so you could express yourself. And so you recognize, man, huge margins, huge markup, and you probably didn't know the terms, but you recognize the dollars, right? Like this kid is making a huge amount of money on something that he's not spending as much on the front end. So tell me, just in practical sense, how did you first get started? Did your older brother spot you some money? Did you go to your parents and say, yo, can I get a credit card? How did you even get into it to get enough shoes to make some money off of it?
Great question. That was the first question. How am I going to get enough money to make this happen? Trial and error. I started by selling the shoes that I had, realizing that the shoes I had wasn't making any money. So I need to go figure something else out. You know what I mean?
It's the true epitome of don't get high off your own supply. Right.
Right. And so what ended up happening was my big break happened when I had gotten the opportunity to work for a startup music technology platform. And so it was over the summer. I didn't have really anything to do. And at that time, I was kind of dabbling in music. I kind of felt like I wanted to learn production a little bit more. So I had gotten Logic on my computer and all of that type of stuff. And a family friend of ours who's a bassist, he was like, I'm part of this startup. We just need somebody to come on and do some of the grunt work. And so basically what my job was I think 10 hours a day, minimum. I was doing 10 hours a day, and I would just go, I would take a full song, put it in the Logic, and I would clip it for like a 2-second part of the song. And so I tell people a lot of times now, I was like, I feel like I was working on the earlier versions of TikTok, because now a lot of people engineer songs are just, hey, we need that one catchy part that's going to be good for 15 to 30 seconds on
Yep.
TikTok, and then we'll blow up, and nobody cares if the rest of the song is good. And I'm like, man, I feel like I had a part in some of that kind of turning that way. But man, that was the first like real job that I had that was paying like real money. I was like, my checks every 2 weeks were $800 plus. I was like, now this is how you start sneaker reselling. Man, that same summer, I went from 5 pairs of shoes to 55 pair. And I was just like, yeah, no, this is what I want to do. Wow. I was like, I love this. Like, this is dope. So that's where I really started, reselling heavily.
Yep.
And then by nature of reselling, I kind of learned all of like the dark side of reselling. So all the scamming, all of the, mail fraud that people would do, and fake pictures, and how they would trick you and all of this other stuff. And man, I was really fed up with that part of it, because I was like, man, we all enter the resale market to express ourselves, right? We're looking for that thing that no one else in our area has, that we can show that says that this is who we are, and we took time to go find it, And I really felt for a lot of the people who would post on there and be like, man, I just got scammed. What am I supposed to do? Who's supposed to, like, how am I supposed to get this money back? And people are just like, it's gone, and it's gone. And I'm like, man, there has to be a better solution than just, oh, my bad, you got scammed, man. Like,
just be gone.
Yeah. And so, being fed up with that, I think that's what led me to the first version of Solecit, which was a sneakerhead's paradise. I really wanted to help people who had no idea about sneaker reselling, what it was, what the industry was, where to go, where to shop. I really wanted to help them navigate that in a way that kind of took some of that hassle out of their hands and really put that onus on us. And so that's where we really started the entrepreneurial version of all of this. Oh, well, all of it was entrepreneurial, if I'm being honest. But that's where we really started the business building, when we really sat down and thought about, hey, what extra value am I providing other than just being a reseller? Because a lot of people can get you. A lot of people can get you a good price, but what is something that we can do that others can't? And I really felt like that was peace of mind at that time. Like, really knowing that you're working with somebody who's trustworthy, who wants you to be able to express yourself in the best way that you see fit, and to help you get there. And so that's really where it started.
I love that. I mean, and one of the clearly key features of businesses and brands in the sneaker resale space specifically is the need to build a high level of trust with the customer, right? There are, to your point, a lot of points in the product journey that are rife with potential pitfalls, counterfeit products, potential misships, overseas vendors that are not necessarily just showing the same product that they're shipping. So you've got all of these different areas where, as a customer, you can be essentially bamboozled, but you've got brands, right, that need to find a way to drive a high level of trust with those consumers, especially just to exact the transaction. So tell me a little bit about how that concept of building trust and being able to validate that what you were selling was what you were saying you were selling, then led to your second pivot. Because what you just described, just for the audience, if you're following along with Nazr closely, like I am, what you first heard there was his first pivot. He realized that, sneaker resale for the sake of sneaker reselling is cool, and you can make some money. But in order to really scale, he was going to have to differentiate himself than just a brand that provided simply reselling of tennis shoes. And so at some point, it had to become more than that for you to have a competitive edge, right? And so tell the audience and talk to them about now, as you started to realize, like, whoa, this trust thing's real. And I need to be able, just because even on my own experience in the resale space, I need to be able to figure out a way to increase the trust level, and where that ultimately led, even though it wasn't technically you that maybe broke this thing open universe-wide, it just shows the thought process was there. So tell the audience about that thought process and what that made you then go to your second pivot and do.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I was young doing all of this stuff. I was doing it purely off of the vibes. And
how old? Young, what age?
So the first version started when I was 16. So I started reselling at 13. The first version of the business started at 16. And I had no clue what I was doing. Again, I've worked in small, medium-sized businesses pretty much my entire life. From restaurants to mobile grocery stores to the music app, all of that type of stuff. Like, I'm really an entrepreneur spirit type of person. And so I knew that was the space I wanted to work in. And when I found my niche, I was like, okay, I'm gonna just dive into this. Like, it felt so full circle to me, because I was like, wow, like, all those years and all that time I spent in the mall, like, this is why, like, it's to do a fashion business, you know?
Right.
And so, that was really amazing. But the building of trust, I think, was the hardest part. And I'm gonna be very transparent in because there's a level of vulnerability from both sides that you need in order to build trust. And at that time, I was not a very vulnerable person. I really struggled to communicate my vulnerability and to do it in a way that was authentic. And so that is one of the areas that I really felt like I struggled prior to getting into college, because I was like, man, like, of course I got my community. I absolutely love my community. My community came out in droves. They supported me. They bought t-shirts. They repost everything, but again, it's Kansas City and it's the Midwest. When you think about startups, a lot of people are thinking about West Coast. A lot of people are thinking about East Coast, especially anybody who's getting money to startups. If you're at that time, especially if you weren't on either one of the coasts and you're talking about a tech platform, nobody was really taking you serious. And then I was 16, I was 17. Like, nobody was taking me serious, but with my community, it started with showing up. Just they know who I am. They know the impact that I have on the people under me. They know the impact I have on the people above me, age-wise. And I felt like that really was the first level of trust, is getting my community to buy in to my idea and into my concept. And then from there, that's how I started meeting people outside of my community. People who, oh, my cousin lives in Chicago, or my cousin lives in New York and he knows somebody at Foot Locker. This may be somebody for you to get connected with so you can get some extra shoes. Awesome. Thank you. Like, so I feel like even more so, like, the trust part in the earlier version was more on the back end business side than it was even with my front end customers. But because I had that back end trust, I started building more rapport with some of those people who did want to come to me and buy sneakers directly. And so that was something that I didn't realize would kind of come back to me. And we'll get to this in the later part of the story. But being in the CIC, that was one of those full circle moments I had there. I was like, man, it really does all start with me, huh? Like, people got to trust and believe in me, huh, for this thing to really get off the ground, right? And so I think that was one of those big lessons early on that kind of keeps coming around as you grow and as you pivot, of, hey, it all starts with you. If you're not communicating, if you're not being vocal, just as I said earlier about the importance of being in tech early on and speaking up and giving feedback, if we're not doing that, how does anybody know that, one, you're there, or two, how to build solutions around it, or around the experience it. So, that was that first moment.
Now, taking that one step further, talk to me about how then you jumped from this primarily focused resale platform and sneaker focused, to broadening and pivoting, right? You almost like got out that car, jumped into a bigger car, and then said, yo, we're going to take this on a different road than I'm on right now. So walk the audience through that, why you felt it necessary to pivot completely out of sneaker resale as focused, and then what the steps were you took to both formalize that team and put together that strategy that essentially is kind of driving you down the path now.
All great questions. I want to start with my transition into college, though, because
let's talk that.
When I got into Lehigh University, the big reason I chose Lehigh University is because when I took a visit to their campus, I sat in an entrepreneurial session. They have those different types of sessions at school. And so I sat in that one because I was like, I don't really know what I want to study in school. Again, I had dreams of studying all types of stuff. I came in as a bio major, for anybody wondering. So I had dreams of studying other stuff, but I knew entrepreneurship would be either my crutch or the place that I would go in addition to the other studying that I was doing. So I was like, I have to go to a school that has entrepreneurship resources at the forefront of what they do. I sat down in that session. It was about 30 minutes long. And I got up and I was like, yep, this is the place I need to be. I knew it. I knew it after that session. The person speaking, Chris Kausman, he was an incredible mentor throughout my entire 4 years. I did every program, every single entrepreneurial program in class that they offered at Lehigh University. And it was just such an informative experience for me because everybody I had been around back home did not have that business education. And one thing that I think a lot of entrepreneurs or anybody who's tried to start something will understand is that there's a difference between having the idea and doing it for the love of something and then making it a business. There's a whole lot more you have to consider and understand when making a hobby or anything you're passionate about a business. And so really understanding all of those pieces, understanding what it really meant to be in a market with competitors and what those competitors are and how their strategies influence what you should be doing and the direction you may be headed. It was one of those things where I was like, okay, like this is a whole nother thing than, again, just reselling. This is a whole nother thing than, just trying to protect people reselling, because a lot of people, as reselling became a bigger industry, again, when I started, it was maybe a multi-million-dollar industry, but no one really knew about it. By the time I got to my second year of college, it had grown into $1 billion industry. The same people who were telling me at 16 people would not buy shoes for $1,000 when they cost $160 at the store were the same people asking me, "Hey, do you think you can get these
those shoes
for less than $1,000?" And I'm sitting here, I'm just, man, like, wow, look at how far we've come, And so it was one of those things where Lehigh really gave me a grounding,
structure,
and understanding business. Like, again, intuitively, you understand, the margins of what I'm selling something at, what it costs, and what all of that stuff. You understand that intuitively, but when you have to write it down on paper, when you have to be responsible for those numbers, turn it into somebody and be accountable for everything that's on there, it's completely different, right? And so that was like that first big transition. Then from there, it was the pandemic. So I had actually taken a semester off of college. I was about a semester ahead. I could have graduated early, but I decided to take a semester off because I had never done entrepreneurship without a safety net. And I knew that if I were to graduate school and go into the real world as an entrepreneur, I need to test this out first, but before we just dive right in.
So this was like your entrepreneurship work study, while the rest of the business department was doing work study at formal businesses or structures. You took it upon yourself to create an entrepreneurship work study. So tell me a little bit more. How did this go, and what did you discover?
I was so excited. I was thrilled. I'm coming in it with, a lot of energy, a lot of passion. I'm like, man, I have so many ideas about what we can do. Let's just get started. And, 2 months later, as the entrepreneurial journey goes, a world pandemic happened. And I'm sitting here on campus like, really? Like, when I take a semester off, now we have a global pandemic? Like, I'm sitting here just like, what am I supposed to do? And
goodness.
And it was one of those moments. Ultimately, what came from that was one of my best years reselling that I ever had, was during the pandemic. And it was one of those situations where I sat down and I was really thinking about, what am I doing this for? Yes, we want to make money, but what am I doing this for? And I'm like, it's a global pandemic. People are dying. And I'm sitting here trying to convince people to buy sneakers at more than I bought them for. I didn't even make the sneaker. Like, I'm not even, right. It's not that it's even my product. It's somebody else's product that I've put more value on, that we've put more value on, that I'm now trying to sell for higher. And that was one of those things where I'm like, just because the market is big and there's money to be made doesn't mean that that's where I need to stay. And so that is where the next pivot kind of started happening for me. I wanted to figure out a way, because again, at that time, that's where we're also crypto's really big, NFTs are really big. And so what I saw at the beginning of sneaker reselling is what I'm now seeing again in crypto, again in NFTs, and back in sneaker reselling, which is a lot of fraud, a lot of scamming, rug pulls. And I was just like, I don't want to be associated with any of this, because this is not why I got into business. I did not get into this business to be associated with people that I know are doing bad business and giving us all a bad name. And I'm also not the person who's going to go on every social media platform and call out everybody I know. That's not a way of gaining your trust by calling other people out. So I was just like, we need to find another way. I know I want to stay in fashion, but how else can we do this? How else can we provide this value? We built some, features on our platform that we felt were really unique, that we felt no one else still had in terms of platforms, and that we could use as a basis of whatever was next for us. And the first thought was, at that time, I was very into just sneakers. So I was like, okay, apparel. That's the easiest kind of thing to get into next. Margins are a little bit lower. There's a wider range of stuff we can dabble in. So what do? I originally started kind of with the thread beast and stitch fix model, which is, hey, people have a hard time putting outfits together. We'll get their stuff together. We'll, find stuff. We'll, throw items together, and we'll give them a box. Like, cool, dope. Tried that a little bit. And, what we found was, don't tell me how to dress. Like, I was like, oh, my bad. Like, my bad. I didn't realize, you know what I mean? Like, and it was, one of those transitions where it was like, everybody was like, no, like, I have the pandemic fashion. I don't really care about my clothes. I don't really care about, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just on Zoom. Like, that was kind of a lot of the mentality. So I'm like, okay, maybe the subscription box thing isn't going to work. So it wasn't until about actually 3 years later that we officially fully pivoted out of sneaker reselling. I had continued to try to stay in the space, to figure it out. I knew apparel was going to be a side of it, but how, And so I just kept reselling, because I was like, look, we can move into apparel. Apparel has a lot less fraud and a lot less questions than sneakers did at the time. And so I was like, cool, that's a comfortable space. I moved out to Boston after graduating from Lehigh. I moved there, one, because they had a lot of sneaker manufacturers there. So they have, your New Balances, they have your Pumas, they have Reebok, they have Converse out there. They have a lot of different, fashion brands and sneaker companies. So I was like, cool, maybe I could go there, interact with some people, get some shoes from the source. Maybe I was still in my resale mindset. So I was like, maybe
exactly.
People higher up, I might
kill two birds with one stone.
Exactly. And so, and then what I learned when I got there, which was beautiful, is that they have a big vintage and thrifting population. And with Boston being pretty expensive, what ends up in their thrift stores is a lot higher quality than what ends up in
what we're seeing in the Midwest.
Yeah, man. So I was like, okay, cool. Like, this is a good space to kind of get it started, figure it out, move into that next thing. And man, I couldn't let the outfit concept go. Maybe it wasn't the boxes, maybe it wasn't the pre-made outfits that we sent out, but I knew there was something else there. So I was actually, before I got into the CIC, I was in a smaller incubator called Startup Worcester. And it was in the middle of Massachusetts. So I had to commute out there a little bit. So a little bit more of like a Midwest mindset, but with a chip on their shoulder, because they knew that their big brother in Boston was there, and they got all the money and the resources, so they were really entrepreneurial in their mindset and in their mentality as a city. And I really loved that about Worcester. So I was out there, I was in that program, and looking back at all of the feedback. So we had done a bunch of different surveys throughout my time in college. Like, I've surveyed easily over 1,000 people while at school, just to find new insights, to find, hey, price sensitivities for, where we should price our original subscription model that we have for Experience Paradise. Hey, like, how much can we go on the margin for shoes that people will feel comfortable with, but still feel like they got a good deal, but we still made the margins we were looking for. So I had all of this data, but I hadn't really looked at it since I decided to really pivot. So I got back into the data. I got back to the origins of being entrepreneurial, and I went back to the ideation phase and going through all that feedback, and I found some insights there that overlapped with what one of the program managers had told me, and that was, "Hey Nazir, I love what you're doing. I actually really love sneakers, but I'm not at all confident in wearing any of them." And I was like, "Why?" He was just like, "My wardrobe's just not there. I don't think I have anything in there that could match these sneakers." And I was like, and there were about 20 other people who said something similar to that in some of our surveys. They say, I just don't buy sneakers because I'm afraid to wear them, or I don't know what to wear them with, or I'm not confident in that. And I was like, man,
Wow.
there's something in here.
It's true, right? And right. That was an insight, a key insight from your customer base that told you that a part of your offering was not necessarily comfortable for them, not because the product was bad, was just because they didn't know how to fit it into their consideration set of clothing and style.
Exactly.
So that was your aha moment. What do you come out of that aha moment thinking?
So I came out of that moment thinking there was something to our pursuit of switching to apparel. Over this time, I had kind of course corrected back to sneakers specifically because I saw some other sneaker platforms rising again. I saw a little bit more money being diverted into sneaker reselling. So I was like, okay, maybe this is my time to catch back on the wave again. But again, it got crowded, and I was like, no, maybe sneaker reselling is not really what I want to do, but maybe helping people, bridge the gap between the stuff that they wanted and the stuff that they had, and bringing them more confidence. And I'll tell you one more thing that kind of cemented that for me. I actually did some part-time work at Warby Parker, which is an eyeglass company. And a big part of what we did there was really just helping people build confidence in the fact that this pair of glasses would match what you have in your wardrobe, would match how your face looks, and would be something that you could wear every day, and to wear it confidently. And I was like, a lot of people were attracted. They knew what they were going to buy when they saw their first 3 frames. They knew that those were the frames that they liked. And then the next 20 minutes was us trying on other things just to bring them back to that thing that they were at the first time, because they weren't fully confident in it. They walked in, they were like, it's a bunch of options. I don't know if I'm really confident in this one, just to come back to that one, And so I was like, okay, there's something here. And so the first version of our pivot to Solecit was simply just trying to show people different ways of styling popular items. So we did in-person style consultations. So we would talk with people one-on-one. Okay, like, what types of items do you like? What are you not buying that you want to buy? And why don't you buy it, right? So one, confirming that some of those assumptions that we had were still the main assumptions. And then two,
this was a one-to-one experience, not necessarily delivered through the app. So initially, first iteration of Solecit, you were providing basic or general style advice based on general items in the market, or were you talking about stuff they had? What was that advice based on?
General items in the market. And so it was more so geared around outfit inspiration. So creating mood boards for people, just to show them what you could do. Right. So, okay, you said this was your style. You said this was your style. We're going to put together like 5 different outfits, incorporating different items that you like or different things that you wear. Maybe you have them in your closet. Maybe you don't. But just get a feel for what a full outfit looks like so that you can envision yourself in this. Right. And so we did have a platform at that time, and we allowed people to like book the consultations through our platform and all of that type of stuff. But,
so like virtual stylist consultations, essentially.
Exactly. Like, just like you and me are here now virtually, again, coming off the back of the big Zoom boom is what I call it. Everybody's comfortable being on video calls now and things like that. So I'm like, okay, like we got a Zoom account. Let's just do this, And so that was that first little version. After about 15 interviews, so we had 1 week where we had 15 interviews. And for some people that may not seem like a lot, but that was like our peak at that moment. We were like, okay, like coordinating all of these, making sure we have, stylists there, making sure we can, get all the information together. And then, putting these outfits together, we were like, yo, this is a lot of manual work. Like we were like, geez, right? And so the first insight there was there has to be a way of bridging the manual work to our technological platform that we already have people scheduling on in a way that kind of takes some of this work off of our back. So
Right.
that very next iteration was delivering the outfit inspiration on our platform to specific accounts. And so then what that allowed us to do was just on the back end create a bunch of different outfit inspiration of a bunch of different stuff, just throwing things together based on the different style profiles that we had built off customers we talked to. And then that way, when people like filled out a little survey of the different types of things they wanted or wanted to look at, we would just populate their outfit inspiration feed with these pre-made inspirations and allow them to kind of look at stuff and things like that. And then from
Nice.
there, they could also kind of tell us, hey, I kind of like that item there. Do you know where I can get that? Don't even worry. We can go get that from you.
We got you connected.
Exactly. And so that's kind of where that kind of second version kind of morphed into. And so as we were doing that, the real big issue there, always, 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 I want to take a moment to tell any of the entrepreneurs out there, always seek feedback. Always. Never know what type of advice you get, being open to criticism and feedback. I know when we say criticism, a lot of people tighten up because it sounds negative. But criticism, feedback, however you want to call it.
And it can be constructive. Yep.
It's the most important thing that you can get in any early stage of validating your ideas and validating your business. The more feedback that you get, the more insights that you can pull from. And so
I love that.
We were still trying to, figure that out. How can we make this better? Because really, the outfit inspiration, all right, but we don't want to give 30 people the same 2 outfit inspiration boards. I was like, we're getting a little lazy here, guys. Like, how can we make this a little more personalized? How can we make it more centered around?
Which is on trend, right? I mean, the big trend sweeping across fashion, beauty, and to a degree, music is personalization. People want to receive their music, their fashion, their beauty products in a way that feels like it was targeted to their specific needs, right? And one of the more glaring ways we're seeing this show up is in women's makeup, right? For years, women's makeup only came in tanned white woman, for lack of a better description, right? And so now you've got all these shades and colors and beautiful, tones that you can, bring to the table. And personalization, is the trend that brought that to the forefront. So you realize the need to personalize your styling advice, which is, frankly, what a lot of movie stars, celebrities, and very accomplished people have available to them just as a function of their resources and money, right? But regular people don't have the ability to have a stylist on deck, have somebody that they can quickly bring into the studio or come into the house and tell them exactly, what they need to grab out of their closet to wear to a specific event. And this was your attempt to basically solve that tension point.
Exactly. Just like with the sneaker reselling earlier on, wanting to make it more accessible to people. I was in the Midwest. The only people that I knew who had the sneakers that I had were traveling all the way to Chicago to go get them and coming back in the same weekend. That doesn't make sense for everybody. And I love the example that you gave, because for me, coming into it, when I hear stylist, all I think of is celebrity stylist. All I think of is, man, you paying 10 grand, 10 grand for this person to do this stuff. That's something that's way out of reach for me. It's way out of reach for me, but that doesn't mean that I still don't want styling advice or I still don't need styling guidance. So why not make that more accessible, And so that's when I started really forming a true tech team. Because at that point I had dabbled in between with a bunch of different developers and a bunch of different types of people. And, we made progress on the platform in every iteration, but I wanted a team that could really help me put this vision together, who could really lock in with me and believe in my ability to bring this to fruition and to work towards it together. And that was, I think, a really big moment for me was starting to really build out the team that I have today, which started about 3 years ago, which is crazy. So, so that was one of those moments where it was like, okay, now we need to go into business building. Hey, we validated this concept. We've had different MVPs, but now we actually have to build a business around this because we know what we have to do now. So
I love that. I love that. So I want to talk a little bit because I know I want to keep us on track from a time standpoint, but I also want to make sure I cover a couple of other key insights that you gained as you finished up your time at the CIC, because as you're innovating and you're working, you and your team are working through this next iteration of Solecit, you've also been able to really do a great job of leveraging the resources of that program. As you said, you have some involvement in the booster program. Shout out to them as well for their support of Solecit. But talk to me about some of the key insights that you took away from your time in the program, and what specific advice or feedback you would give to other founders who are thinking about going the accelerator route or not. Because I know as many accelerators are struggling across the country to figure out what the state of the grant and funding environment is going to be, especially under this administration. There's just a lot of confusion and noise around how they intend to support small businesses, specifically entrepreneurs in the minority community and in the veteran community and the disabled community. So talk to me a little bit about your key insights, what you feel like you really gained and learned from being in a program like that, and then why you think founders should also consider applying for programs like that in their local markets as well.
Yeah, so first off, shout out to the CIC Social Impact Cohort. It was an opportunity that I originally applied for and got rejected from, and then I applied the very next year and got accepted to. And one of the things, because at that time I was a little down on myself about where we were at, with the business and our progress and everything. But one of the things that the program manager said to me after I had gotten accepted and everything was, we remember your application from last year, and the progress you've made from then until now is remarkable. And I was like, man, I've been sitting here thinking we haven't done anything, like, all of the kind of, negative talk that you have sometimes when you just get beat down by the journey. And it was just one of those like breath of fresh air moments where I'm like, man, no, like I'm really progressing through this, through everything that I'm dealing with. I've done it and I'm doing it, And so that was one of those moments that were just like, okay, I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. You know what I mean? And one of the things there that I want to really emphasize to any founder, but particularly the underrepresented founders, is fit is more important than notoriety. And I know that is somewhat controversial, because if anybody puts the two programs side by side and say what you want to be in, like that, it's hard to convince you not to take some of the bigger routes, some of the bigger opportunities, etc. But what you also need to understand is that there's another level of expectation there, and just because that level of expectation is higher does not mean their level of understanding of who you are, where you come from, and what you deal with on a regular basis is going to be there as well. And so just like anything else, these programs are partners. And so if you do not have a partnership with the people that you're in the program with, everybody from the managers to the cohort members, if there is not a partnership, a collectiveness there, you will not get what you need out of that program. And you're going to be at the end of that program feeling like, why was I a part of this program? So I would say, and that's the other thing too. One program may prepare you for that bigger program as well. So don't feel like just because you didn't get into the big ones. Look, I got rejected 25 times.
Mm-hmm.
I can count them. Mm-hmm. I can show anybody all the rejection emails 25 times from the bigger ones. But when I decided to kind of, all right, let me get out of my ego. Let me step back. Let me just start with the first one. Let me just get through a program. All right, let me see what the next one is, right? I know where I know what information I need out of this next level. What's the next one that I'm confident I can get in that will also provide that for me, that I can give back to with my energy and my time as well, right? And then you scale and you grow from there. Not everybody can hit a home run at their first time at bat, but sometimes it's just about getting on first base. Then you can score. Yeah. You can score being on first base, but you can't score from the dugout. You know what I mean? So
you got to get out there.
So yeah.
I love that. I love that. Now, look, you've wrapped up the accelerator and returned to Kansas City.
Yes.
What's next for Solecit? What do you have on board for Solecit, and what do you want fans to know about and potential followers and customers to know about the brand as you move forward?
Look, the biggest thing I want people to know is that we are looking to change how everybody views their own fashion, starting with what they own. We're not trying to start by selling you a bunch of stuff. We're not trying to start by convincing you that you're not enough. We love who you are, and we want to show you how to be the best of who you are with what you have first. And then we can get into all the stuff that you want to buy outside of that. And that way we can do it sustainably. That way we can help your pockets, that you're not wasting money on things that you don't really want, and that we can also help the environment. Fashion in general is one of the biggest polluters on this planet, and we can do stuff in our own behaviors and habits to help curb a lot of that lack of sustainability that we see in the industry. And that starts with utilizing more of what you own with a platform like Solecit. And so that's my big thing for the customers. And on the other side, for brands, designers who want to compete in this market that's super competitive and don't feel like they're getting that moment to really gain traction or to get in front of people, man, I would love to talk to y'all. We're building some awesome things from the B2B perspective to help make you guys more competitive, to give you guys better information so that you as well are not wasting money building collections that people won't buy, that you're not wasting time diving into an area or a trend that may be dying right now. Yeah, maybe it may be back in 5 years. You know, fashion is cyclical, but you don't want to invest your time there when by the time you put it out, it's not going to sell, right? So we're building a lot of tools and a lot of resources to help both ends of this issue to also help create a more sustainable fashion economy. So if you're looking to be a part of that, definitely get in touch with me, and we would love to help you with all aspects of that.
I love that. I love that. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on the show. We still have some more information to cover, so we're going to have to get you back for a part 2. I know you've got some exciting things happening later this year, a couple of key milestones for the brand that we would love to bring you back on. We definitely want to make sure we point out to our audience to go out and check out Solecit at solecit.co, not .com, .co. Make sure you don't make that mistake and put the M on it and then get to complaining, oh, Dana, you told me it was Solecit and I couldn't even find it. It's solecit.co. Okay, so find that website, check out this young brother. We will also be sharing this information on the brandblueprint.biz, not .com, because we're about that biz. Now I'm giving you 2 different things. You got to make sure you click in to find us. But once you find us, you will find some additional information. You'll be able to find Nazr on LinkedIn and on his respective platforms, as well as all of the additional content and resources and show notes that we provide you as well. Thank you again for tuning in to another great conversation with another fantastic and dynamic founder, one that also extends from the CIC network that we so love on the show and have had a great time partnering with. So once again, thanks you, Nazr, for coming on the show, brother. I really, really appreciate you sharing this insight with us today, and I look forward to having you on the show again soon.
Yes, thanks for having me, and I look forward to being on here again.
Thanks for joining us on the Brand Blueprint journey. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms to stay updated. Watch the full episodes on our YouTube channel for an in-depth experience. Don't forget to subscribe to our website at thebrandblueprint.biz for exclusive content and materials. We're everywhere you need us to be.